Hi there, my name is Joanna Whitney. I am an intuitive artist, a student of natural law, and an energy healer. And we're reading the Kybalion by the Three Initiates. We're on page 57, which is within the chapter Planes of Correspondence, chapter 8. And it's going to get very technical in this chapter right now. And I'm just going to include in the description some further material that one can use to investigate what they're talking about here. Many people have claimed that the Three Initiates is a pen name for William Walter Atkinson, who was an author from the early 1900s. And in the Library of Hermetics, they go into his work with regards to the topics that are discussed in this chapter. But I am just going to read it because it's part of this chapter. So it's just extremely technical, and I'm not going to go into the details of it much, except to say that it basically just shows what we're being distracted from learning, and how many people have forgotten the natural world. And me personally, as a result of doing this podcast class and reviewing this material, I am trying to integrate more learning towards nature and nature's the planes of nature, and how to embody the principles in this book. And I'll put all that in the description, mainly because I want to turn away from what society is presenting right now, all of the distractions and all of the chaos that is being presented in society, because nature is still doing its thing. And although we are pretty destructive of nature, nature is still operating in its sanity. And I'm using this as a springboard to try to expand my experience and knowledge of the natural laws for my own self, so that I can live parallel to the craziness and I don't have to be a part of it anymore. And I can use the golden rule: do unto others as I would have others do unto me, treat others as I would like to be treated, and spend my spare time studying natural law, and therefore not participate in the communist takeover. And in so doing, I gain spiritual strength, which I will need to stand up to the attempt at usurping my freedom by the dark occult Luciferians, the global elite, L-ites, as I prefer to call them. And that's what this study is about. But the next few pages of this chapter, like I said, are extremely technical. And so I'm just going to read it. Page 57, the first full paragraph. The Hermetists subdivide each of the three great planes into 7 minor planes. And each of these latter are also subdivided into 7 subplanes, all divisions being more or less arbitrary, shading into each other, and adopted merely for convenience of scientific study and thought. The great physical plane and its 7 minor planes is that division of the phenomena of the universe which includes all that relates to physics or material things, forces, and manifestations. It includes all forms of that which we call matter, and all forms of that which we call energy or force. But you must remember that the Hermetic philosophy does not recognize matter as a thing in itself, or as having a separate existence even in the mind of the all. The teachings are that matter is but a form of energy, that is, energy at a low rate of vibrations of a certain kind. And accordingly, the Hermetists classify matter under the head of energy and give to it 3 of the 7 minor planes of the great physical plane. These 7 minor physical planes are as follows: the plane of matter A, the plane of matter B, the plane of matter C, the plane of ethereal substance, the plane of energy A, the plane of energy B, the plane of energy C. The plane of matter A comprises the forms of matter in its form of solids, liquids, and gases, as generally recognized by the textbooks on physics. Now remember, this was in 1908. This was prior to the takeover of science by the Rockefellers, shielded as the American Medical Association, for the purpose of derailing medicine and science into their own satanic eugenics agenda, which is what we are currently seeing. And science is completely confused now, whereas at that time, it might have been more focused because they were talking about energy at that time. So we have been quite derailed here in the modern world. All right. The plane of matter B comprises certain higher and more subtle forms of matter, of the existence of which modern science is but now recognizing. The phenomena of radiant matter in its phases of radium, etc., belonging to the lower subdivision of this minor plane. The plane of matter C comprises forms of the most subtle and tenuous matter, the existence of which is not suspected by ordinary scientists. The plane of ethereal substance comprises that which science speaks of as the ether, a substance of extreme tenuity and elasticity pervading all universal space and acting as a medium for the transmission of waves of energy such as light, heat, electricity, etc. Now, I just want to point out that the war that we're in is also a war over the ether. First, what they did was they hid the ether. They occulted the existence of ether. It's only recently coming back out again. But they did so that they could use it for electricity, for Wi-Fi, as well as remote viewing and other psychic programs of the military, which I'm sure are way beyond most people's imagination as how far they've gotten with it. But at this time in 1908, it was still something that people knew about. The ethereal substance forms a connecting link between matter, so-called, and energy, and partakes of the nature of each. The Hermetic teachings, however, instruct that this plane has 7 subdivisions, as have all the minor planes, and that in fact there are 7 ethers instead of but 1. Next, above the plane of ethereal substance comes the plane of energy, A, which comprises the ordinary forms of energy known to science. Its 7 subplanes being, respectively, heat, light, magnetism, electricity, and attraction, including gravitation, cohesion, chemical affinity, etc., and several other forms of energy indicated by scientific experiments, but not as yet named or classified. The plane of energy B comprises 7 subplanes of higher forms of energy not as yet discovered by science, but which have been called nature's finer forces. and which are called into operation in manifestations of certain forms of mental phenomena, and by which such phenomena becomes possible. The plane of energy C comprises 7 subplanes of energy so highly organized that it bears many of the characteristics of life, but which is not recognized by the minds of men on the ordinary plane of development, being available for the use on beings of the spiritual plane alone. Such energy is unthinkable to ordinary man and may be considered almost as the divine power. The beings employing the same are as gods, compared even to the highest human types known to us. This could be discovered in books such as Initiation into Hermetics by Franz Bardon. I'll put it in the description. The great mental plane comprises those forms of living things known to us in ordinary life, as well as certain other forms not so well known except to the occultist. The classification of the 7 minor mental planes is more or less satisfactory or arbitrary, unless accompanied by elaborate explanations which are foreign to the purpose of this particular work. But we may as well mention them. They are as follows. 1. The plane of mineral mind. 2. The plane of elemental mind A. 3. The plane of elemental mind B. 5. The plane of animal mind. 6. The plane of elemental mind C. 7. The plane of human mind. The plane of mineral mind comprises the states or conditions of the units or entities or groups and combination of the same, which animate the forms known to us as minerals, chemicals, etc. These entities must not be confounded with the molecules, atoms, and corpuscles themselves. The latter being merely the material bodies or forms of these entities, such as a man's body is but his material form and not himself. These entities may be called souls in one sense and are living beings of a low degree of development, life, and mind, just a little more than the units of living energy which comprise the higher subdivisions of the highest physical plane. The average mind does not generally attribute the possession of mind, soul, or life to the mineral kingdom, but all occultists recognize the existence of the same, and modern science is rapidly moving forward to the point of view of the Hermetic in this respect. Molecules, atoms, and corpuscles have their own loves and hates, likes and dislikes, attractions and repulsions, affinities and non-affinities, etc. And some of the more daring of modern scientific minds have expressed the opinion that the desire and will, emotions and feelings of the atoms differ only in degree from those of men. We have no time or space to argue this matter here. All occultists know it to be fact, and others are referred to some of the more recent scientific works for outside corroboration. There are the usual 7 subdivisions in this plane. The plane of elemental mind A comprises the state or condition and degree of mental and vital development of a class of entities unknown to the average man, but recognized to occultists. They are invisible to the ordinary senses of man, but nevertheless exist and play their part of the drama of the universe. Their degree of intelligence is between that of the mineral and chemical entities on the one hand, and of the entities of the plant kingdom on the other. There are 7 subdivisions to this plane also. The plane or plant mind in its 7 subdivisions comprises the states or conditions of the entities comprising the kingdoms of the plant world, the vital and mental phenomena of which is fairly well understood by the average intelligent person. Many new and interesting scientific works regarding mind and life in plants having been published during the last decade. So what's that, 1890 to 1908? Plants have life, mind, and souls, as well as have the animals, mind, man, and Superman. The plan of elemental mind, B, in its 7 subdivisions, comprises the states and conditions of a higher form of elemental or unseen entities, playing their part in the general work of the universe. the mind and life of which form a part of the scale between the plane of plant mind and the plane of animal mind, the entities partaking of the nature of both. The plane of animal mind, in its 7 subdivisions, comprises the states and conditions of the entities, beings, or souls animating the animal forms of life, familiar to us all. It is not necessary to go into details regarding this kingdom or plane of life, for the animal world is as familiar to us as is our own. Well, I wouldn't say that anymore, because, I mean, these days, I would say we're so distracted that we actually believe that plants are things and animals are things that we can do with as we wish. We even have divided animals into certain categories of the ones we eat and the ones that are our pets. And so I think we're pretty far gone down the road past where they were at in 1908 with regards to this. It seems this is more of a pantheistic point of view, sort of more of a Native American point of view, in which there is a soul in everything. But it's also Chinese medicine, because in Chinese medicine, they basically say the same thing. They say, we are in Qi and Qi is in us. So Qi is in everything and everything is in Qi, just as the all is in all and all is in the all. So, you know, again, in the description, I will be recommending some different things that are available to everyone right now, where you could start to embody these principles and live in wholeness rather than living in separation, because the disease that is permeating the planet, thanks to our buddies, is the disease of separation from the all, that everything is disintegrated into tiny little parts and is not connected. And therefore, everything is pretty much a mechanical piece of a machine. That's what they want us to believe. Whereas what this is saying basically is, according to the law of correspondence, everything is a cell of the all. This is basically what this is saying, that everything is a cell of the all, as above, so below. And so everything has a consciousness, everything has a soul. With that in mind, there are a lot of things that it might not be so easy to do. There might be reasons why it's easier to think of a package of meat in the supermarket wrapped in styrofoam and plastic wrap as a product that I use to eat, rather than that it was once an animal with 4 legs and eyes and emotions and a heart. It's much more difficult to think of it that way. You have to kind of grow some courage in order to think of it that way and question what you're doing when you think of it that way. But there's so much more to the food chain than I'm even going to get into now. I'll put it in the description, but as above, so below, as within, so without. That's what we're studying right now. So it's a lot easier to cut down a tree when you think it doesn't have a soul and it isn't communicating to its fellow trees, isn't it? Than to think that it actually is an actual being with a soul and a caring and a desire to live where it's living. The plane of elemental mind, C, in its 7 subdivisions, comprises those entities or beings invisible as are all such elemental forms, which partake of the nature of both animal and human life in a degree and in certain combinations. The highest forms are semi-human in intelligence. The plane of human mind, in its 7 subdivisions, comprises those manifestations of life and mentality which are common to man in his various grades, degrees, and divisions. In this connection, we wish to point out the fact that the average man of today occupies but the fourth subdivision of the plane of human mind, and only the most intelligent have crossed the borders of the fifth subdivision. It has taken the race millions of years to reach the stage, and it will take many more years for the race to move on to the sixth and seventh subdivisions and beyond. But remember that there have been races before us which have passed through these degrees and then on to higher planes. Our own race is the fifth, with stragglers from the fourth, which has set foot upon the path. And then there are a few advanced souls of our own race who have outstripped the masses and who have passed on to the sixth and seventh subdivision, and some few beings still further on. The man of the sixth subdivision will be, quote, the superman. He of the seventh will be the overman. In our consideration of the 7 minor mental planes, we have merely referred to the 3 elementary planes in a general way. We do not wish to go into the subject in detail in this work, for it does not belong to this part of the general philosophy and teachings. But we may say this much in order to give you a little clearer idea of the relations of these planes to the more familiar ones. The elementary planes bear the same relation to the planes of mineral, plant, animal, and human mentality and life that the black keys on the piano do to the white keys. The white keys are sufficient to produce music, but there are certain scales, melodies, and harmonies in which the black keys play their part, and in which their presence is necessary. They are also necessary as connecting links of soul condition, entity states, etc., between the several other planes, certain forms of development being attained therein. This last fact giving to the reader who can read between the lines a new light upon the processes of evolution and a new key to the secret door of the leaps of life between kingdom and kingdom. The great kingdoms of elementals are fully recognized by all occultists, and the esoteric writings are full of mention of them. The readers of Bulwer's Sinoni and similar tales will recognize the entities inhabiting these planes of life. Passing on from the great mental plane to the great spiritual plane, what shall we say? How can we explain these higher states of being, life, and mind to minds as yet unable to grasp and understand the higher subdivisions of the plane of human mind? The task is impossible. We can speak only in the most general terms. How may light be described to a man born blind? How sugar to a man who has never tasted anything sweet? How harmony to one born deaf? All that we can say is that the 7 minor planes of the great spiritual plane, each minor plane having its 7 subdivisions, comprise beings possessing life, mind, and form as far above that of man of today as the latter is above the earthworm, mineral, or even certain forms of energy or matter. The life of these beings so far transcends ours that we cannot even think of the details of the same. Their minds so far transcend ours that to them we scarcely seem to think, and our mental processes seem almost akin to a material process. The matter of which their forms are composed is of the highest planes of matter. Nay, some are even said to be clothed in pure energy. What may be said of such beings? I think I'm going to stop there. That's a lot to think about. There's a lot of things in here that you could copy, paste into search engine and look up. But I would say the most important takeaway from that reading is that there's so much more than meets the eye here on Earth. And at some point, humanity was interested in that. But we have become so distracted by Hollywood and by lie vision in all its forms, the internet, social media. We're completely distracted by that. And it's unfortunate because that is what the Allies would like, so that they can take us over, create chaos that we buy into, and then take us over and make this world into a communist state. So with that said, I just recommend that you research and meditate on this and try to integrate these ideas into your life. Until next time.